Around a year ago, on March 1st, 2019, we got the inaugural episode of a show that I think is one of the best things in the entire rap landscape right now. This is why hip-hop needs the cave. So after a short title sequence, we meet the host of the show and his very first guest.
You don't have a tempo preference today? You don't have a vibe?
Alright, maybe we don't exactly meet them, but if you're a fan of rap, you should probably already know who they are. The guest is the extremely critically acclaimed Baltimore native and up-and-coming experimental rapper JPEG Mafia, and the host is some white guy. Okay, the white guy is Greenwich, Connecticut native Kenneth Bloom III, more commonly known as Kenny Beats. Like Peggy, Kenny Beats has really been blowing up within the past couple of years, but because we're talking about his show, I think it's necessary to dive a little bit deeper into his backstory. Kenny is a multi-instrumentalist, record producer, and songwriter who has had a passion for music since he was a little kid. He attended the Berklee College of Music, and during this time, he started making some really fascinating connections. He was doing early production for TDE guys like Ab-Soul and Schoolboy Q, which is amazing, but Kenny wasn't making much money in hip-hop. In the years that followed, Kenny became fascinated with EDM guys like Bauer and Flostradamus, who were succeeding in the field of electronic dance music while using a lot of trap-inspired sounds. Kenny made his way into this world along with his friend and collaborator Ryan Marks. They formed the duo Loudpack, and within a few months, they were touring, doing festivals, they had a manager, a booking agent, and so on. But Kenny missed hip-hop. Loudpack was a success for a few years, but Kenny Beats eventually went back to his roots. He started working with and becoming close to rappers like Rico Nasty and Key, who PS would eventually give him his signature producer tag.
Whoa, kidding!
And the rest was history. While he isn't exactly a frontrunner in rap's mainstream right now, he's been getting plenty of work, his stuff is fantastic, and most importantly, he's not just a beat maker, he is a producer. He works with musicians to come up with something together. It's not him making a beat alone, emailing it over, and then getting a verse back. No, it's a collaborative process. And speaking of collaborative process, let's go back to the cave. So this is the studio where Kenny makes his music, and last year we got the first episode of a YouTube series where him and a guest musician make a song together. Here's a very chopped up version of how that went down in the original episode with Peggy.
You don't have a vibe?
Like a 90s R&B tempo. Oh, I gotta get a new... I lost my time, guys.
We put the pedal to metal, I'm a Nicki Minaj. One deep, baby, can't top it.
The first episode of the series was only about 3.5 minutes long, but it's clear that Kenny and his team were realizing what they wanted from the cave as time went on. At this point, the episodes are usually over 10 minutes long, and now we have a much better understanding of what this show really is. Step 1, introductions and joking around.
Welcome to the cave. Yo! Welcome to the cave, my boy. We have TJ X6 in the cave today.
Y'all wanna see some crazy kung fu freestyle action?
No. You like you work at Old Navy.
Step 2. Kenny asks the musician if they have any specific requests for what they want their instrumental to sound like.
I'm trying to do like soulful, something I can throw a little melody in.
Any timers or anything?
Toxic.
All right, let's go.
I want some 808s.
Low pressure R&B.
Yeah, hard but cute.
Make me a Bernie Bro beat.
Step 3. Kenny gets to work on the beat and the musician adds input as things go along. Step 4, the grand finale of each episode. The musician hops in the booth and freestyles to the instrumental that Kenny just made.
Dead homies, white homies. Kenny Beats is the police.
Flames all on my body like I'm Charmander. Denzel in a pond like a salamander.
I might cut your hoe. I ain't talking about Ashton.
Now I love this show for many reasons, but this template, the structure of how the cave works, is something that feels perfect. The opening couple of minutes of each episode are always relatively goofy. This remains consistent whether Kenny is working with one of his best friends or if it's somebody that he isn't as close to. The vibe in the cave, and the one that Kenny has been giving off since his rise to fame, is one of fun. He's easygoing, friendly, and pretty much every single episode is super inviting. The energy of this show is not ultra serious, it's not about business, it's about people coming together to do what they love to do, make music. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Once the musician starts talking about what kind of instrumental they want, this is when the show gives you an idea of how versatile a producer Kenny is. Whether it's Zack asking for a beat that sounds like RuneScape mixed with Jodeci, or Omar Apollo laying down a groovy bass line for his alternative Latin R&B pop song, Kenny is up for whatever. With strong backgrounds in both hip-hop and EDM, Kenny's musical flexibility is not surprising, but it's still impressive every single time. Welcoming and working with different sounds is something that should always be appreciated within hip-hop, and I'm glad Kenny's doing his part from within the cave. And from this aspect of the show going into when Kenny starts to really make the beat, we get a glimpse into something that we as music listeners don't get to see every day. I can't emphasize this enough. I am astounded by people that are musically talented. Like, it's insane to me that these people are able to do the things that they do. Whether it's down to songwriting, or people playing instruments, or Kenny working in Ableton, which is like an instrument in its own right, getting to see people create music is shocking to me. As someone who isn't really a part of that world, and as someone who can't do any of that stuff, it's astounding watching this take place. And let me clarify, I don't mean people playing music at a concert or listening to a finished single. That stuff is normal to me, and I would imagine that's the same for most of you. I'm talking about the initial process, starting from scratch and making something completely new that sounds great. There are two things about this aspect of the show that I really love. First, like I've been describing, it's just cool seeing a behind-the-scenes look at how this stuff goes down. People love getting an inside scoop of how their favorite things came to be. Whether it's a documentary about how a movie got made, or something like the Gourmet Make Show on Bon Appetit where we see what goes into making Pop-Tarts, it's fascinating to know how stuff works. There's not enough of that in music right now. And secondly, this is where the inspirational aspect of the cave comes into play. For anyone with a slight interest in making music, this show is screaming at you that you can do whatever you put your mind to. Not to say that any of this stuff is easy, but the way Kenny approaches each track with that lighthearted, inviting, fun mindset that we discussed before, he does make it look easy. Making your own track feels accessible when you're watching The Cave, and I think that's important. But finally, we get to the main reason why people started watching this show in the first place. We want to hear new, original songs from some of our favorite musicians. And whether you were a fan of Kenny Beats before you started watching The Cave, or if the show turned you into a fan, now you want to hear what it would sound like if he worked with this person, or this person. While I've hyped up the making of the songs more than anything else, the freestyles are obviously great too. We get casual yet very entertaining bars on these eclectic beats, and Kenny, please, all of us are begging you to put out a compilation album of The Cave freestyles. So now that I've laid out all my evidence in front of you, I just want to wrap everything up and reiterate why this show is so important to the rap game as a whole. In the age of the internet, within rap, within music, within life, whatever, there's a big question mark next to the word authenticity. It's a weird time in the world where everything always feels a little bit manufactured, so people are demanding the real thing, and that's what The Cave is, a small slice of reality surrounded by a world of fakes. When it comes to stuff feeling manufactured and inauthentic within hip-hop, we could go down a list. people stretching out their albums to maximize streaming numbers, labels engineering songs that sound like they were specifically made to be the next trend on TikTok, everything about the concept of DJ Khaled, and so on. But The Cave is none of that. It's about an actual love for the music. It's about the friendships, it's about diversity, and the list goes on. It's a comfortable, warm, inviting space that brings you closer to their world. It shows you that sometimes making goofy songs with your friends can come out better than tracks with 100 different producers on them. There's no better example of authenticity prevailing than Zack Fox's episode. This man is not a rapper, he's just making jokes from start to finish, and they ended up making a legitimate hit song. Now, whether or not you agree with the concept of a quickly made, completely meaningless joke song blowing up, that's a conversation for a different day, but my point is this: The Cave is the epitome of what hip-hop needs right now. People having fun, the cohesive relationship between producer and rapper being celebrated, and authenticity succeeding once again. Thank you, Kenny, thank you to all of his collaborators, please get Tyler in The Cave, and thanks for watching. Hey, thank you for watching that video. If you haven't heard of The Cave before this, please go watch every episode, it's the best. If you want to support the channel, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You can follow me on social media at RenshawHS. You can buy my merch, support my Patreon, and thank you again. I'll see you soon.